All right, fellas, Groq, my favorite private semiconductor company. Okay. Groq makes semiconductors for inference, which is like running AI models. They just did around 600 million at a $6 billion post valuation. This is what I want to talk to you guys about. Where do we think this company can go? Okay. So let me throw some numbers at you. 2025 forecasted revenue is 500 million. 2026 is 1.2 billion. 2027 is 1.9 billion. Okay. This round was oversubscribed. So 600 million on a 6 billion valuation is a 10x revenue multiple. I'm sorry, I think that's a little low. All right. Ooh. For a semiconductor company. But if you take a look at the 1.9 billion revenue that they're forecasting in 2027, if they can pull that off at a 10 times revenue multiple, that's a $19 billion valuation, right? So that's not bad. That's 3.2x in 2 years' time. So where do we think these guys could be in like 5 years' time? And maybe if we don't have to talk specifically about Groq, maybe we're just talking about compute on a macro level, right? For as it relates to AI, because I think some stuff's pulled through on earnings and everything. But Evan, why don't we start with you, man? Like, what do you think about Groq? What do you think about compute, AI demand? Is this an interesting place to be investing? What are your thoughts?
It's absolutely an interesting place to be investing. I mean, this is where, the picks and shovels of what is likely to be a technology defining industry are being built. I still think it's quite early. Groq seems to have some excellent technology. Betting on them today has really nice upside, but I would say it's limited to the sense that there is still a lot of competition to be had. There's still a lot of uncertainty on where inference will go, but they seem to have great technology. And I think they've been executing and firing on all cylinders. I think that there's so much more demand to come in this market that has yet to be even, I don't even know the word, like thought about. Mm-hmm. So I think that their projections, I agree with you, Aaron, are kind of low. I think that they probably are setting them low so that they can crush them. And right. It seems like a pretty nice opportunity to get in on the ground level, knowing that if you got to be a long holder here, in my opinion.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So Clint, maybe we'll kick it over to you. So Evan likes Groq, but maybe you could talk just about on a macro level, what you think about compute and like demand for compute.
I mean, I love it. I think this is where the money's going, right? As we say on this call, a lot of you follow the money. And if you look at AI and where the money has to be spent in order to scale AI, chips is one of those areas. And you have to bet that it's going to be moving, in terms of market share towards inference over time from just raw compute. So I'm really optimistic on Groq, really optimistic on the space in general. Yeah. And I think when you see NVIDIA trading at over 30 times sales, really dominating from a, monopoly perspective, if you think about chips today, and really being the clear benefactor of all this CapEx. I mean, I just saw that just in 2025, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, Alphabet, are going to spend over $400 billion on AI. The CapEx is real. Right. And I think when you look at where that's going to go and going to continue to go and where it's going to evolve to go, you have to think that inference chips are going to be a benefactor. And so I agree with Evan. I think they're probably lowballing estimates, right? You got to manage expectations well. But I think there's tremendous upside here. I think it's an asymmetric bet when you look at a company like Groq, because the valuation's just not where a name that is expected to grow a lot, it should be at this juncture. That's probably why it was oversubscribed. It's a good deal.
Yeah, it's like good risk-adjusted return.
Yeah, there's asymmetry there.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so Nick, let me ask you this, man. So like, it seems Evan, Clint, bullish on this type of play, but like, I know data center capacity, right? Like you can't build them fast enough, kind of thing, and then also like access to electricity. That's the other thing that people are talking about too. Do you think that that's a risk for Groq, or you think we'll kind of just figure this out on a kind of national level or global level? These constraints will kind of be worked out. Like, what do you think?
I think everyone's working with the same constraints. maybe some of the bigger players will have better access or can negotiate better terms. But I think they're just looking at the way they've structured this deal. It's priced in. Like some of the risks are priced in. So the fact that maybe they won't get as good of a deal as someone that's further along or raise more capital, that risk looks to be factored into the discount. The illiquidity, when you've made the comparison to an NVIDIA or even any of the other AI players that are going to take the same wins, if everyone's pushing more compute, more inference, more everything, everybody kind of wins in that same ilk. That seems pretty fair too. And then even the fact that for a lot of this raise, they only took 600 million on a 6 billion. So very crude is 10%. Right. That's not brutal. That seems pretty beneficial for the company. And it's almost like we know we could have taken more. We're drawing a nice line in the sand to show everybody we know we're worth it. We're oversubscribed, so we're going to shout that from the rooftops and then carry on. So yeah, I think this is a pretty cool, risk-adjusted place to put your bets.
All right. So a unanimous bullish outlook on Groq. I mean, this to me, like Clint, I'm right there with you. I know you're like our picks and shovels guy, but I think everybody kind of agrees with this too. Like the risk-adjusted return profile on these types of companies is just awesome. And there's not that many out there. That's the other thing that's in the private space, right? There's not that many out there. So to the extent you can get your hands on them, I think it's an interesting place to look. Okay, let's talk OpenAI, fellas. They're crushing it. Okay, check out these numbers. They came out with a whole bunch of numbers this week, right? Annualized revenue hit $12 billion. It was $4 billion ARR in December of 2024. That's nuts. Come on, that's $8 billion, right? They were, okay, and then 700 million weekly active users. That's up from 500 million in March. That's 40% growth in 4 months. They have 5 million business customers as of July. This is Brad Lightcap, the chief operating officer, said this. They had 3 million at the end of June.
Whoa.
That's nuts. That's a 66% increase in 1 month. I don't know about you. That's like the definition of product market fit, right? That's insane amount of growth for business customers, right? Okay, and then on the capital raising side,
Evan still looks dour, by the way, for anyone listening. Just the facial expression is, I'm suspect. Okay.
All right, and then okay, on the capital raising side, so they were going to come out and do 40 billion. I think they're done. My math says they're done. Like they raised 10 billion earlier this year. They just announced this past week they raised another 8.5 billion, and SoftBank was coming in for 22.5. So I don't think SoftBank participated in this 8.5. They might have done something in the 10 billion earlier this year, so maybe they're not quite there yet, right? But nonetheless, like they got most of this 40 billion that they were looking to bring in by the end of the year, right? And there's some hair on that SoftBank money too. They got to do the for-profit conversion, which, we don't, maybe we get into that, maybe we don't. But anyway, I got these guys at a $326 billion valuation. I'm seeing them trade up, right, in the secondary market from the convertible note value, the $300 billion kind of post-convertible note value. So thoughts on OpenAI? Like, Nick, maybe we start with you, man. Like, what do you think of this company? It's kind of shaken out that it's like, you got like Anthropic and Claude, you got XAI, maybe you got some Google Gemini, and it's OpenAI. It's like kind of 4 of them. I don't really hear a lot of other players for the large language model space, right? But what do you think of these guys? How do they stack up? What do you think about their future prospects?
Sure. Just the hair on it, and I know you said, oh, maybe we'll touch on it, but the conversion to from nonprofit to for-profit, the involvement that I really feel Microsoft has their hooks into these guys way deeper than they ever could have expected. That all adds up on my risk profile.
Sure.
And I know we talked about Perplexity and Anthropic a little bit more last week rather than just the pure comparison to OpenAI. But if I were going to play the sector, I would want to have a bit of each. And actually, where I think I'm going to make a better return is probably a Perplexity and Anthropic relative to OpenAI. But they're the mainstay. They're definitely bigger. They have a lot more of a captive audience. I never would have expected that 60% jump from 3 to 5 million for corporate.
Yeah.
That's really impressive in a surprising way. And every time I talk to my close friend over at Google and I say, what about these guys? He wants to dismiss it. He wants to not account for it. He wants to tout how amazing Gemini is. But this is I'm not going to say an unmitigated threat, but this is a certainly the one that could really displace and start to shake up everything that's been happening at Google a little bit more than the others, and already have, right? So I'm really impressed that they continue to grow at the pace they have.
Right.
So yeah, it's they're the ones in the sector you got to watch out for.
Right. Okay. So Clint, this type of growth is this is a lot of growth for a customer base that's huge, right? And also too, the revenue, it's like translating into revenue growth too. They're not like giving this away, right? People are paying for it. And like, look, they're at like 25 times revenue multiple right now, right? That's the 12, is my number right? Hold on a second. Yeah, 25 times revenue is 300 billion valuation and 12 billion in revenue, right? So perhaps by the time the year end hits, they'll be even north of, kind of 12 billion ARR. I mean, that's a pretty attractive valuation multiple for a company that's growing this fast, right? I mean, I know it's a lot. 300 billion is a lot, but like, what do you think about the valuation? Is this like an interesting entry point for OpenAI, or is it just too expensive, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's too expensive. I think you have to truncate your expectations for 20x returns at this level, right? I don't think the asymmetry is there. Mm-hmm. But I think the serious opportunities in the B2B side here, I think Microsoft, although they do have their hooks in because early money's expensive money, I think it's a strategic advantage of them or for them from a data perspective, from a getting because of the business to business functions with Office and how Microsoft is got significant penetration in that marketplace. That is a natural growth trajectory and growth area for OpenAI. And I use it all the time. I use other ones too, but for the majority of my work, the OpenAI Pro with the agent mode is insane. And as they continue to add agents, it does literally everything I need it to do. And not flawlessly, but almost flawlessly.
Right.
And that's everything from marketing copy to writing market commentaries to me uploading every due diligence document I've ever, put out, and then helping it create investor memos from new subscription documents or private placement memorandums to writing code so that I can, develop a form that then spills out an output from conference board data. Like it's literally saved me a ton of time, saved me a ton of money from a business perspective. And I just think when you multiply the productivity gains that this engine can create for the businesses that partner with it, I think it's amazing.
All right. So you think the growth is the revenue growth
going to be there.
It's going to keep
growth's going to be there for a while, and it's all going to be in the business segment.
Okay.
I think, in my opinion, that's where
got it. All right. So Evan, so then this, like you eyebrow raised, I saw it when I was quoting those business numbers, right? 66% growth in 1 month is nuts. That's nuts. Agreed?
Sure. Yeah, that's a lot.
And then so then the question is like
so muted.
They must have done something. And Lightcap actually noted in his kind of remark that he made, he's like, we're working really hard with businesses to get them going. So something like magical has happened between OpenAI and their business customers, right? I don't know what that is. I ask around and find out. Go ahead.
Do you think that could potentially just be end of trial, or end of credits running out, and that's going to give you your big pop? That could be as well. And that's not what you're hoping for as an investor. You want this to all be super organic. Yeah. But it's kind of like when Netflix shut all of your cousin's accounts down because they were sharing. Well, look, so sorry, I didn't mean to jump over Evan, but there's definitely a lot of that in play, right?
But Evan, like when I last time I took a hard look at this, right, it was like a very API driven model for OpenAI's like B2B play. But now that, to Clint's point, they have all of these other solutions and kind of tools and user interfaces, right? which I'm sure are available to their business customers. Is that what's pushing this over the top, do you think? Or like what could be the driver of such a like huge amount of growth for OpenAI in their B2B channel?
That's a great question. And that's the question that causes me to raise my eyebrow. Nothing just happens for no reason. You don't just wake up one morning and there's 2 million new business customers. Sort of what Nick was saying. Something has to have happened. It could have been, subscriptions lapsing. It could have been the launch of agents, which I know
so like
has
a
been like a
technicality, right? Something that affects. I got you.
Yeah. Or the fact that maybe they added a subscriber field, which says, "Are you using this for business?" And a bunch of people just say yes.
Sure. Okay. Sure. Fair enough.
To me, as and all four of us here have our ear to the ground of what happens in the business world. I haven't seen anything in the last 2 months that would make me be like, "Oh, well, that explains that." And so to me, it makes me feel like, and because he specifically didn't cite, and I'm talking about the COO of OpenAI, specifically didn't cite any reason for why that happened, it gives me pause to be like, well, maybe this is just I've worked at companies before. There's lots of ways you can spin news to make it sound better and look better than it may be because you don't have all the context.
Yes.
So look, all of this to say, I still go back and think the product is phenomenal, and like 700 million weekly active users seems like that's probably going to double in the next year or two. So I don't think that, I just found the news to be a little surprising, and maybe they're doing it because they see maybe that news came out because there's so much hype right now around Claude Code, and Claude just raised this big round, and they've got this, they've got the engineering business model like really honed in, and they just launched their financial services, and maybe they were just like, well, OpenAI needed to make some noise, and this is how they
splash.
did it.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I think there's a lot of opportunity for all these companies to continue to grow. I think, we're going to see there's billions of people in the world. I would expect at least half of the population of the earth to be using AI on a daily basis sometime in the next 3 years. So like, it's just like endless opportunity and upside. And the race for the most effective model will continue to go on, the most efficient model. So there's just a lot of upside of all this stuff. And I think for 326 billion, it's probably still you still got upside, but I agree with Clint. It's not asymmetric at this point.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. All right. Listen, Evan, you can do due diligence for me at any time. You have a healthy amount of, you got to be sold. You need to believe. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. Right.
He's our BS
That's
meter.
Great. That's great. That's right. No, it's just like every time I bring something, he's like, I just don't know. Like, let's just get into that, fellas.
Well, look, I think we're all business operators here, and we know how much work goes into moving every metric up and down, even a point.
It's true.
And so when I hear someone say we just gave 2 million business customers overnight, I'm like, that doesn't just happen. Like, I'm sorry, that doesn't just happen.
I know. I just love it. I love how it's not even like, wow, that's amazing. Congratulations. And then you're like, but like, can we get in and like really digging in on that number, please? It's just straight to the, I don't know what. Come on.
Well, early in my career, I was a partner at a venture fund, and we were a seed fund. And like 90% of my job was looking at a deck and being like, well, what is this metric? And what is this metric? And why does it, like, how did you get here? Because you're a seed company. How are you profitable? And it's like, because you're not paying for office space. You're not paying yourselves. You have no employees. Oh yeah. Okay. That's probably why you're profitable.
It's healthy, man. That's healthy. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. Let's talk about Lovable. So this company is out of Europe. Okay. They are AI app, what I would call an AI app. All right. So they sit on top of other AI models, and they basically help make applications. Right. So this company's gone from $1 million in ARR to $100 million in ARR in 8 months. That is insane amount of growth. They're labeling it as the fastest global startup that's ever happened. Okay. They have 10 million projects being built. There's 100,000 new applications that are being created on this thing every day. That's insane. And now they just launched this Lovable agent, which is helping people, just like OpenAI and everybody else. These agents are like checking and double checking and everything that the applications, so that there's less errors and more efficient. So I got into these guys a little bit, and they did a round in July, like last month, right? $200 million at a $1.8 billion valuation. This company's been around for less than a year. So I got into this a little bit and like kind of like, what's the big deal with these guys? Like, why does everyone love them? It's not that people are like building an app and like launching it and like starting their business on it. The thing that I've heard that people really love about this is like product teams. Like I used to be a product guy, right? At Morgan Stanley and TD. So like product teams are building actual apps themselves, use your functionality and everything else. And it basically like works. This is where I want the button. This is how the workflow I want it to look like. And they're like negotiating all that between themselves and other stakeholders before they hand it off to the development team. And then the development team can, obviously code it up in a proper way and then launch. So like the cycle to deliver new applications is accelerated dramatically, right? So I find that to be a very interesting use case, right? Because as a technology company or even any business, you'll be able to accelerate kind of the release of tech and applications, which should help with efficiency and I think drive more net income. So Lovable's a new company, so I'm not going to assume that you guys know what they are. But this is maybe we can just talk about these guys in the context of like AI apps. Like, that's interesting. This is interesting. Like if we see more companies like this, right, where they're building on top of other AI platforms, that could be, I think, super compelling. These are super compelling investment opportunities, right? I mean, what do you think, Clint? Maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, trading opportunities.
Okay, tell me more.
Yeah, so ultimately, I love this space because it reminds me of a quote, and I forgot who said it. And it was essentially AI is not going to take your job. It's people who use AI that are going to take your job.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that in the near term as AI continues to iterate and evolve. You're going to have companies that emerge that provide this user layer, right? This is like a user layer on top of AI that allow product teams to get products launched quickly, allow people to create apps, allow people to create websites. I went on and kind of looked at like you can, create me a marketing page or create me a landing page for this marketing campaign, and it creates it, right?
Right.
That is awesome. But eventually, all of this will be done within the large language models that remain by themselves. And so you have a finite runway. And do you have a big enough established moat to where the substitution's not going to eat your lunch at the end of the day?
Okay.
You might be the fastest startup ever now or whatever they call themselves, but
global startup.
Yeah. But ultimately, these type of businesses without major moat development are going to, just as fast as they rise, they're going to fall just as fast, in my opinion. So I think they're a trade. When you say an investment,
it's like a victim of their own success. They're so successful that these large language model platforms will just come and
you're going to see one-person businesses, in my opinion, that reach over $1 billion valuation in the age of AI because you've never been closer to idea to creation in terms of that timeline being squeezed that you are today. And so ultimately, it's just a matter of time. Folks, we're in an era where Fartcoin trades at a $1.4 billion valuation. So you're going to have one-person businesses with billion-dollar valuations that are going to be layers on top of AI, but that doesn't mean they're sustainable and that you can bet on persistence. And I think when you make an investment decision that's long-term and you don't have liquidity, you're betting on persistence. And I think that's a challenge in these apps.
Okay, so I'm there with you too. Like Evan, like what do you think of this? This is where I haven't like put any chips on the table in the AI app space yet. Because to Clint's point, I don't know where it starts or stops with these large language model businesses, right? You may not know that for like another 2 years or 3 years or so, right? So, like, do you think that these AI apps are investable? Do you think that you got to wait and see? Like, where do you stand on it?
I think it's facts and circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'll take the other side of what Clint said just for Lovables, as just for the sake of the argument here. And I look at like Lovable to me has a lot of the similarities to a MailChimp, which took a business where setting up an email list, and it allowed anybody, basically a prosumer, to come in and build a professional experience where they could write emails that looked professional and send them out to people. And that business got sold for multiple billions of dollars to Intuit, and it was a fantastic business.
Yeah, they're like 50 people there too. That was a good result. Yeah,
I think it really depends on who the customer is whether or not the AI, like this AI business, is defensible. Because I think if you're going to the real enterprise businesses, it's going to be very heavily competitive, because there's the big incumbents that are going to try to come downstream. There's the startups that are going to go upstream, and they're going to fight for, and the contract cycle is just very long. But for Lovable, a business that I would say is much more prosumer. Tomorrow I wake up and I decide I want to go start a Chipotle for dog food. I can go to Lovable and just generate a website, and it would cost me very little. And maybe in the future, you're right, there's another competitor out there that does it cheaper, or maybe someone like Canva comes in and builds that product and it has their distribution. Sure. But I do think that like the prosumer market is they're more price sensitive, and they're less, like, they're price sensitive to the fact where they're less brand associated. So they're willing to be like, oh, well, this is the cheapest option. It does everything I need to do. Like, what do I care? Right. And so I think that there is a big opportunity there for AI businesses to win that market share, the customer who doesn't really care that much about the brand or how effective the tool is compared to the rest of the market. Right. So it just depends on your customer, like if they're relying on it every day. And I will say the challenge with Lovable is that like it builds you and designs you a website, but it may not run that website very well for you. Yeah, so you might churn really quickly, or maybe you start your Chipotle for dog food and it goes out of business in like 6 days. Yeah, and you're like, well, that's a customer you just lost. And OpenAI would say that's one of the 2 million they gained this month. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like, what I'm saying, okay. I just think that there's it all depends.
Well, this is what I found interesting, and Nick, maybe I asked you to think about this, like, because you're running a technology company, right? So like, Figma just went public. And we all had very nice things to say about Figma. It took off, right, last week when it IPO'd. But Figma, product development teams use Figma, right, to develop products. And now Lovable shows up, and all the use cases that I hear people say they're really excited about is with product development teams. So perhaps a direct competitor to Figma, like we all like that business. But to Evan's point, if Lovable kind of gets traction within product development teams, and starts to get that, love from their customer base, is this something that could have staying power, right? Or is it just, or like OpenAI comes in and gobbles up or offers a solution and eats their lunch, right? Like kind of where do you think their opportunity is?
Right. So yeah, I hate to be dour on a company that just made the fastest list from 1 million to 100 million. Yeah. But also we look at companies that are on the other list, which is like, I forget, was it 100 million or so to 1 billion ARR, and Canva was the fastest. So I'm really happy that Evan brought that up. And Canva's down. If we look over the last 3 years, Canva on a valuation basis compared to their last round is down. And I almost feel like the same affliction will happen here. There's been a ton of buzz, like when Facebook launched Threads. How exciting is Threads? Like, yeah, I feel as though this is an intermediate step that could be really helpful. And if it's not as involved and all-encompassing and connect the connective tissue to other parts of your business aren't there, like you could have with any of the LLMs that we were talking about before, it's just a matter of, is this much better than your next Canva, your Figma to work with? Are people happier to work with it? And yeah, all my due diligence was done in like the last 30 minutes anyways, but from what I can see, it just seems like, okay, drop a quarter in the machine and it will change the button from gray to purple. Oh, I didn't like purple, so let me pay another credit and get the change. And those are all things that everyone's been able to do anyways with the web flows of the world are similar. So unless I get another hour of hacking at this and it reinvents everything I've ever thought, I would probably prefer to open up a little bit more, pun intended, with an OpenAI, Perplexity, Anthropic, so they also get the context of the remainder of my business, because I'm a business operator, and that then flows into anything that I would be doing with a Lovable. But I mean, anybody that goes from 1 million to 100 million ARR, you can't poo-poo that in any way. So I'm sure they have the money. They're raising money for a purpose. you're not just taking more money in when you've just
Right.
made so much, unless you know exactly where you want to go next and next. So there's something I'm missing for sure.
Well, listen, I think to summarize maybe the full conversation today, and just let me know, fellas, if I'm off base here, but it sounds like if you put your investor head on, the infrastructure plays are most interesting, right? The picks and shovels plays in AI, followed by the large language model businesses. And then it sounds like maybe AI apps aren't even on the table quite yet, right? From an
the
investment
four of us
perspective.
are totally
like
going to miss the
wait
next
and see.
Instagram for sure.
I think AI apps are super interesting. I'm waiting for them, but I think they're very interesting.
I think they are too, but I got to be honest. Like, I want to be a second mover in that space. You know what I'm saying, Evan? Like, I just want to see where the sandbox is going to get, the sides of the sandbox gets drawn out,
There's that quote that everyone's been saying, which is that the model that you're using today is the worst model you'll ever use in your life.
Right.
So I just look at businesses. We talked about legal in the past. I look at accounting.
Right.
I look at, medical device, medicine, healthcare devices, like businesses where those verticals are just perfect for AI.
Yeah, it's true.
And I'm just like, yeah, AI apps are just going to come and destroy all of them.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Which one?
Right. It's true. All right, fellas. Well, let's end it there. I know Nick called for like a 2035 like what's the world going to look like in 2035 podcast, which I actually think is a great idea. So you guys up for that? Maybe we'll do that next week or the following. Like a nice like August podcast, right?
Sure.
The extended edition, yeah. Uncut.
Yeah, right. All right, sounds good. I'll get
Lovable
that
market
queued up.
cap prediction 2035.
2035.
Love it.
My poor wife, all she hears me talk about is what the world's going to look like when our kids are in high school and in college. And I think I've officially drive her crazy. She's like, I don't know if any of these things that you're saying are to come true, but if they are, the world's going to be a very different place. So
very true.
It's going to be fun. This will be a fun one, fellas. All right, boys.
All right.
See you
guys
tonight
tonight
for dinner, right?
See y'all tonight. Yep.
All right. See you tonight.
soon.
All right. See you,
Bye.
boys.